Hi, Hillside. Pastor Ron and Council President Daryl Siplinga here with November's Council update. And we got about 5 or so items that we want to discuss. First, we want to give you, we received an update on women's ministry from Kristen Heilman and what's going on there. We want to talk about the Trunk or Treat event that we had. We spent some time talking about the state of Hillside, and we'll tell you what we mean by that. Again, we spent some time discussing the human sexuality report. And then the final one, we'll talk about our financial position. So,
thanks, Ron. We did have a combined meeting for the October and November meeting because of schedules and that kind of thing. We combined both meetings together in one. And at that meeting, we began with something that we're going to continue on a regular basis to get updates from some members of the staff about programs and that kind of thing so that we can stay connected. And one of the things we said at the council is we want to support the staff in their endeavors and the work that they do. So our first one was to hear from Kristen in the women's ministry program. So she talked about the impact of those programs, gave us, for those of us who needed to know more, she let us know a little bit about Women in the Word and Moms Connect and the Anchored program. And more importantly than even just talking about those programs, what was impactful, at least for me, was to hear those stories of individual women whose lives are being impacted and who are impacting each other's lives through their study and fellowship and interaction. So it was great to hear from her, and we're thankful for Kristen's leadership, also thankful for the leadership of the many volunteers she's engaged with.
And so, we also, on October 30, we had the Trunk or Treat event, and it was really a great night, even though it was really cold. We had over 300 kids and over 150 adults. We had about 20 trunks, and it was just really fun. Hot chocolate and popcorn and a couple of fires people could sit around. A lot of conversation, a lot of talking, a lot of laughing. Some great trunks. People went way out overboard, to decorate their trunks and so on. There were new people who'd been to Hillside just a few weeks or months. There were long-term people who'd been there their whole lives. There were people from the community who came. And so it was just a really good celebration of the community that we experience and want to create more and more of at Hillside.
It's cool that we can have an event like that, Ron, that both provides that connection with community, with each other, and connection with the larger community.
Yeah.
So a neat opportunity. One of the things that we also did at council is we listened to and heard an update from staff on the three key areas that they're working on and we're working on together on the strategic plan. And those items were around our following Jesus. And from that, we heard an update on a developing discipleship plan. We hope that you'll hear more about that in the coming weeks and months, as well as we seek to build a platform to understand kind of how we can grow together individually and with each other. Also kind of loving our world, and especially the newfound and invigorated emphasis on local and global missions that we heard about and how that's tracking. And then finally, how we build community, and that is how do we connect with each other in a variety of ways. So those kind of markers about our progress in that. And that gave us a good opportunity also to take a pause, and we want to do this occasionally, and also want to hear from you around this about what's going really well. We ought to celebrate that. What are some things that perhaps need additional attention so that we can continually seek to improve? And one of the things that it was highlighted on a number of comments that the council said about what's going well, and it had to do with our experiences in worship. That's mostly how we connect at Hillside for most of us, is first and foremost through our worship time. And we talked about how important that is and how well it seems to be going. The music and the music ministry and the integration between music and liturgy and worship. So we expressed some great appreciation there. Also the great congregational support for missions and ministry, both local and global ministries, and also related to the first one, the preaching and applicability of the sermon series. Most of our time was spent focusing on what's going well, and that's a good thing. But we did highlight a couple of things that we could do even better or need more attention. we celebrated a number of new members and new attenders. That's really fun. But can we do better, and how do we improve at and get better even at making connection with those new attenders and new members? What do we need to do relative to small groups to reinvigorate them or support them? We talked about that. And we had some discussion about how we're accessible, especially relative to a variety of disabilities. So again, we welcome your comments and feedback as we think about what we're doing well, what we can improve on.
Yeah, we also spent some time talking about the human sexuality report. And one of the things we wanted to communicate, as we've talked about this ongoing for a while, is that a key part of the question for the council, and it's going to be for all of Hillside perhaps, is what the denomination does with how we handle the question. Let me explain what I mean by that. One of the things our denomination did in the human sexuality report is to affirm the traditional position regarding homosexual activity, that homosexual activity is a sin. And so the denomination said that. But the question came up of, what about those who disagree on that, who perhaps maybe agree with everything else the church teaches as a Reformed church and so on, and agrees with all that. But on this one, they say, I don't think that's the best way to read those scriptures. I don't think that's what this is talking about, and I think there's something we need to do here. And so what about those who disagree? And while the question that the denomination was asking was that, and so there were some in the denomination who want to argue, and a good portion, we'll have to see how many, that people who disagree should not be allowed to serve in leadership in the church. There's another group that goes a little further and says, well, people who disagree on this question of homosexual activity, well, they shouldn't even be allowed to be members. They should be disciplined. And so at Hillside, while we have held to the traditional position, we've also tried to hold to it in such a way that we recognize that there are diversity of opinions, and that our church believes this, but we also want to not use it as a litmus test, as a test of whether somebody can serve in leadership or whether somebody can be a member in good standing. And so part of the question is, will the denomination allow us to do that? And what do we do if the denomination says, no, you can't do that? If somebody doesn't agree with this, even if they agree to not push their agenda on it, they just can't serve in leadership or they can't be members. How are we going to handle that? That's been a good portion of our discussion. And we thought you should know that it's not just a matter of, we're discussing the issue over and over and over again. What we're discussing is, how do we handle what the denomination is doing, and how do we respond to that? And so we'll have ongoing discussions of that with the congregation as well.
Thanks for putting our conversation in perspective, Ron. That's a difficult issue, and I know it feels like a broken record when we come back with that information to you time and again, but it's not a discussion about trying to convince people of different positions. It's how do we respond to the denominational issue, and so thanks for kind of framing that for us. The last thing we talked about was our financial situation through the first 5 months of our fiscal year, and we're thankful for a great finance team, the staff, Andy primarily on a staff side, but all the staff working together, and our finance team who gives general oversight to that. But we received the information and thought you should have that too. It's included in the newsletter in some respects, but through the first 5 months of the year, 3 of those 5 months we had contributions higher than budget. That's a great deal to celebrate. And in fact, our overall contributions relative to budget are about 8% above where budget levels are. So something to celebrate, and we're thankful for the congregation's ongoing support of ministry. And on the expense side, interestingly, 5 out of 5 months we had expenses below budget. Now, many of those will come back into line because some of it is a timing issue, but we're thankful for that. So we're in great shape moving into the end of the calendar year and the midpoint of our financial year. And again, we ask the congregation continues to keep their stewardship and our stewardship in mind moving forward.
And to remember that we receive a large portion of our gifts in December.
Right.
And so, for those of you who do year-end giving, we will be encouraging you to keep that up.
We rely on that and plan on that in the budget process. As always, please reach out if you have questions about anything that the council is thinking about or should think about. Look forward to hearing from you for that. And again, we're thankful for all the congregation and our staff leadership as we seek to do ministry together.